We are about to start with the first technical session of the Congress. I request you all to be please seated. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let us now begin with the first technical session of this Congress. The theme of this session is Urban and Regional Planning and Development Strategies. I would like to invite the participants of the session on stage. May I request Chairman of the session, Shri K.S. Akode, Past President ITPI, Key Speakers, Shri Chetan Vaidya, Senior Advisor, Kochi Smart City Project, Srimati Uma Adusumili, Chief Planning Division, MMRDA, Professor Joy Sen, Head of Architecture and Regional Planning, IIT Kharagpur, and rapporteurs, Professor Dr. Mayank Mathur, SPA New Delhi, and Professor Sarika Bahadure, VNIT, to please be seated on the dais. Supposed to be with us today for today's session. He couldn't be here due to some urgent commitment. He would join us tomorrow. We would have Professor Shri Chetan Vaidya instead in this session. The participants of the next session are already on the stage. I request everyone to please join us in the auditorium for the next session.
Okay.
I request Shri Avinash Vyavhare, Vice President HDIL, to felicitate Shri K.S. Akode.
Hello. Hello.
Shri Akode is ex-director of Town Planning, Government of Maharashtra. He has also worked as Chief Planner, MIDC. He is past President of ITPI. Shri Akode has specifically contributed towards the development of the Pune Center of Maharashtra Regional Chapter. He has more than 30 years of professional experience. May I now request Srimati Neha Kuvalekar, Deputy Planner, MMRDA, to felicitate Shri Chetan Vaidya. Shri Vaidya is an architect planner with over 30 years of experience. He was director of the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi, and was also director of National Institute of Urban Affairs. He was part-time independent director of Housing and Urban Development Corporation and is chairman of the Planning Education Board of AICTE. Presently, he is the senior urban advisor to Kochi Smart City. He has worked on sustainable development goals and urban local bodies in India as a senior advisor to UNDP. I request Srimati Dipti Gowde, Deputy Planner, SIDCO, to felicitate Srimati Uma Adusumili. Srimati Uma Adusumili presently heads the Planning Division of MMRDA. She was earlier Additional Chief Planner, SIDCO. She has a career spanning over 30 years. She has been involved in research representing India in the international comparative research projects on housing for low-cost income groups with emphasis on land supply, regulatory framework and partnerships. I now request Shri Sanil Shetty, Deputy Planner MMRDA, to felicitate Professor Joy Sen. Professor Sen is currently the Head of Department of Architecture and Regional Planning at IIT Kharagpur. His research interests include community and regional planning, analysis and programming. May I now request Srimati Sarika Bodhankar, Associate Planner MSRDC, to felicitate Professor Mayank Mathur. Dr. Mathur is presently Professor with the Physical Planning Department of School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. He has more than 27 years of experience. He has published various research papers. He is also the Secretary of Educational Standing Committee of the IIT. I now request Shri Suhas Gokhale to felicitate Professor Sarika Bahadure. Professor Bahadure is faculty in Department of Architecture and Urban Planning at VNIT Nagpur. I now request the chairman of the session, Shri K.S. Akode, to kindly take over.
Welcome you all. This is a technical session first one on subject urban regional planning and development strategies. I am with us a very eminent key speaker, Sri Chetan Vaidya, Madam Uma Orsuli, Chief Planner Division MMRDA, Professor Joy Sen, and Rapporteur Sir Dr. Mayank Mathur and Srimati Sarika Bahadur. Session is already late, so I allot 15 minutes to each key speaker so that we can complete the session within a time limit. So now I request Sri Chetan Vaidya, former Director SPA, to deliver his presentation and lecture.
Professor Meshramji, my guru, Chairman Akote, and all of you. There is a saying in Marathi, Don घराचा पाहुणा राहील उपाशी. I have to translate. You lose the fun of it when you translate, but what it means is, when you are guest of two houses, you don't get meal from any of the houses. Something like that has happened with me. First I thought I had to speak on SDG and urban planning. Then I thought I had to speak on urban missions. And today, our President Saab has directed me that I have to speak on SDGs also. So, somewhere I lose my balance. So, sir, please, isko lagao, Chetan Vaidya ka. So, somewhere I may lose my focus. So, SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal, will introduce SDG 11. It was mentioned in the morning also by the Minister Saab. That's the most important thing. Then SDG 11 and missions. Monitoring SDG 11 and urban planners. There are three things I am mentioning. UN Habitat, Niti Aayog, and Institute of Social Science. And finally, I am going to speak on way forward. मुझे करना है, आप करें. See, as we all know, given the problems of this world, UN has started this Sustainable Development Goal, which are 17 in number. And if we can achieve these 17 UN SDGs by 2030, all the problems of the global problems will be resolved. Obviously, one is not able to solve all the problems. इसको इधर करना होता है, ऐसे करना होता है. ठीक हो गया, सर आ गया. Now, what are those 17 goals? End poverty, end hunger, healthy living, education, gender equity, water and sanitation, energy, economic growth, resilient infrastructure, reduce inequality, sustainable and inclusive cities, which is directly linked to urban planners. And of course, number 6, water and sanitation is also linked to us. Consumption and production sustainable, ensure oceans safety, forest and biodiversity, justice for all. Now this is a typical sketch or the photo which we see when we talk about SDGs. So I just kept it. It's difficult to read, so I'm not going to read it. I already read it before. Now, former UN Secretary General has said, our struggle for global sustainability will be won or lost in cities. अगर urban sector में हमको जो कुछ करना है हम नहीं कर पाएंगे तो SDG goal achieve नहीं होंगे. It's a very important statement. It also defines that in terms of economy, social goals, and in terms of standard of living, urban is going to play a very important role in future. Most relevant SDG for urban sector is obviously SDG 11. Now, SDGs are bold, universal agreement to end poverty for people, planet and prosperity. There are 17 SDGs and 169 targets that are part of the Transforming Our World 2030, and it came into effect in 1st January 2016. And as was mentioned by President Saab in his lecture, India has played a very important role in signing and preparing these SDGs. And most important theme of SDGs, leave no one behind. क्या हो काम नहीं करा Now, SDG 11, introducing SDG 11 would mean making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Our Secretary, Mr. D.S. Mishra said, if we can achieve these 4 goals, sub-goals, or targets, then we have solved problems of all the urban sector. Cities have to become inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And to achieve this, obviously we need a paradigm shift in which cities of today are planned and managed. So we are talking of urban sustainability. What it will mean in practice? It would mean integrate land use with public transport. I think very important aspect. We somehow try to plan our land use without linking with public transport. Encourage higher variable and marketable floor space index. It's a controversial point, Ashokji, for you. Provide mixed land use and special focus on planning and management of public spaces. Similarly, cities are high risk for natural, man-made and climate change impacts. Urban planning has to take care of environmental issues, again mentioned by the Minister in the morning, and we need to integrate climate resilience within the part of urban planning. And most importantly, without this, if we achieve the first 2, but we don't take care of inclusive cities, then it should be without slums and it should be poverty. People should be helped to resolve their poverty issues. We should reserve land for affordable housing and recognize informal economic activities an important part of the slum settlement. These are the targets. Now, each of them has been divided into various targets. As far as SDGs 11 is concerned, it has about 10 targets. Adequate housing and basic services for upgraded slums, sustainable urban transport, integrated urban planning, protect heritage, reduce losses due to disasters, reduce adverse environmental impact, improve open and green spaces, support positive links among urban and rural areas, increase number of cities implementing integrated urban development, support least developed countries. That of course 11.C is not for us, it's for the national government. Now, if we look at, this is little small, but if we look at each one of these 10 targets, each one has been dealt with one of our missions. If you look at giving housing for all, if you look at second point is inclusive and sustainable development, smart city, then if you look at reducing disaster impact, all smart city, Amrut, housing for all takes care of it. Similarly, the issue with universal access for green spaces, Amrut has a program for improving parks in our house. This technology mission is taking care of making financial and technical assistance to building resilient cities. This was mentioned by PSL Rao in the morning. That Amrut is taking care of safe, affordable transport system. Hriday is taking care of saving our cultural heritage. Swachh Bharat is taking care of sanitation. Amrut Smart City Mission and Housing for All is taking care of rural areas, linking rural and urban areas. And similarly, we have to increase the number of cities under integrated planning, which is all happening because of Amrut Smart City Mission and Housing. Now, the henceforth discussion is very It could not be put in the PowerPoint, so I'll read it out. See, if you look at these targets, if you say 11.1, it is proportion of urban poor living in slums, informal settlements, or uneducated. If you look at 11.2, proportion of population that has convenient access to public transport. 11.3, ratio of land consumption rate to population. 11.4, total expenditure per capita on preservation. 11.5, number of deaths due to disasters, death and economic losses. 11.6, percentage of urban solid waste regularly collected and finally discharged. 11.7, average share of built-up area cities with open spaces. 11A, proportion of people living in cities that implement urban and regional plan. 11.2, number of countries that adopt and implement national disaster framework. If you look at in detail, each one of these indicators, urban planning and urban planners have a very important role. बात यह है कि इस सब कुछ में अर्बन प्लानिंग का रोल होना चाहिए, लेकिन जब नीति आयोग ने एसडीजी इंडिकेटर्स चुने 11 के लिए, तो उन्होंने क्या चुना, उन्होंने क्या सिलेक्ट किया? व्हाट डिड दे सिलेक्ट? हाउसेस कंप्लीटेड अंडर प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना as against net demand assessed for housing. So the figure which morning K.S. Rao was giving, it is almost we are reaching 100%. Percentage of urban households living in slums, by 2030 we want that figure to become 0. Wards with 100% door-to-door collection, again 100%, and waste processed, again 100%. These are the 4 or 5 indicators identified by Niti Aayog. Now, why did they identify this? And why not green open spaces? Why not roads and things like this? The reason is very simple. Our information, what we are doing as urban planners, is not measurable. कोई भी सरकारी आंकड़े में हर साल बताता नहीं है कि हम क्या करें. And it is a major, if you can be measured regularly and approved by government, then it cannot be accepted as an indicator over a period of time. So on one hand, we have a lot of opportunities. Similarly, there is another study by Om Mathur. He says, proportion of cities with urban development plans, simple, it is not a very difficult, it is directly to do with urban planners. Share of mixed land use area in overall city land use, net density, and availability of green spaces. Here some information is available. Now, when we talk about all this, so what are we saying as a way forward? What are we saying as a way forward? So what I am saying is, lot of role for SDG, this is called SDG, monitoring, SDG index, I'm sorry. Niti Aayog calls it SDG index, and in which these are the 5 points. So in this context, we need some kind of reforms in urban planning, both in process, system and data collection. We need to have good capacity building. Now urban planning has to play a very important role in SDG 11. We have to mainstream all these things which we have talked about SDG into our planning process. We have to set up a system of information available on regular and comparable basis. ये नहीं कि एक साल ये डेटा दे रहे हैं, दूसरी साल वो डेटा दे रहे हैं. किसी भी तरह से हमको रेगुलरली एक ही डेटा हर साल देना पड़ेगा अगर हम अपने आप को एसडीजी इंडिकेटर में गिनना चाहते हैं. और इसके लिए 2 चीजें सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है. एक तो कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग. आज मॉर्निंग में हमारे पूरे पहले सुबह बोला गया कि हमको इलेक्टेड लोकल बॉडीज के लीडर्स को कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग है, हमको इसमें भी टाउन प्लानर्स को कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग करना पड़ेगा. और दूसरा है पार्टनरशिप. अब के ज़माने में हम एक कॉर्नर में बैठ के कहेंगे हम अर्बन प्लानर्स हैं, हम ये करेंगे और ये नहीं करेंगे, ये नहीं चलने वाला. वी हैव टू बिकम मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी. Anyway, our planning is a multidisciplinary sector. We have to become multidisciplinary और अगर मैनेजमेंट के लोग हम पे दादागिरी करें तो हमको मैनेजमेंट सीखना पड़ेगा। अगर MBA वाले हमारे ऊपर दादागिरी करें तो हमको थोड़ा बहुत मैनेजमेंट भी सीखना पड़ेगा। We'll have to learn that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Very good presentation on sustainable development. Now I request Srimati Uma Madam, Chief Planner MMRDA, to deliver her lecture.
Thank you very much. I don't know why, but this mic has been moving since morning. I think it is moving vigorously when we speak louder, and it has been distracting a little bit. I have been asked to speak on this sub-theme. When Mr. Mesham asked me to speak, to prepare a paper on this, I literally took the title as the theme given to me. So I tried to very quickly put together some notes on that, using the principle of essay on a cow. As children, we all learned an essay on cow, and when we go to the exam, and in the exam, if we are asked to write an essay on aeroplane, since we know only about cow, we would still write that I was going on an aeroplane, and then I looked down, I saw a cow, and a cow has a tail and 4 legs, and it gives milk. So I tried to, I apologize for doing the same here. I know only regional planning of Mumbai metropolitan region, so no matter what title is given to me, I try to fit in the same information under that. So I could not try too much of innovation on this, and I could not be very original, so I apologize for this. I'm just, any of you who have seen any of my presentations before will recognize the first 4 or 5 slides. I am sorry for it again. So I just wanted to always see the story of town planning in India as the spatial planning in India as a story which began with expanding cities, where areas were spreading around the cities, and we tried the British model of putting green belts around, we didn't succeed. Then we tried to extend municipal boundaries, people resisted. Then we brought in urban development authorities. Some states thought that was not a great idea, so Maharashtra brought in regional planning authorities, and regional planning as a concept, which is not just an area surrounding a city, but which looks at a city which has an influence over a much larger area on account of transit networks that are available, and on account of some areas being adding population faster than others. So these were the 2 criteria used in Maharashtra to define a region. While even new towns were seen as a solution in India, while urban development authorities largely concentrated on development permission, that's one good thing that happened in Maharashtra, that we didn't concentrate on granting development permissions in the regional development authorities, which kept our focus on regional development and not stand in queue for the posts that allow us to give development permissions. So Maharashtra has a lot of innovative approaches to urban planning and creation of institutions. We have all these strengths. I need not go into each of these things. And one of our strengths is that our civil society in Maharashtra, a common citizen, is also very conversant with the lingo of urban planning. So if you say FSI, even a slum dweller would know, rickshaw puller would know, everybody, a beggar would know in Mumbai. They know exactly what it means and what is the implication and how they can benefit from the fact that it can go higher. And then there is a lot of judicial intervention that is deciding on policy for urban planning in Maharashtra. So we are in a way both blessed as well as condemned in this respect. And the kind of regions that are there all over India fall into many categories. And Mumbai metropolitan region falls into a metropolitan region variety. But Maharashtra Town Planning Act actually says that a region can be anything that is notified by the government of Maharashtra for any specific purpose. We have eco-sensitive regions, we can have economic development regions, we can have corridor regions, and we have national capital region also. I try to put in some data, this is a little older data, about the role of metropolitan development authorities that is being played. And I found that while spatial planning and projects is something everyone is doing, some institutions are doing some other things. Development control is largely being done by urban development authorities. Social development and including livelihood kind of things, is only being attempted in Kolkata metropolitan level, and MMR and Mumbai metropolitan region and National Capital Region are also trying to fund infrastructure development. They are doing a lot of financing, hand-holding many other urban infrastructure institutions. That's special about it. And the figures I try to indicate in red color are the ones that are undergoing change currently. MMR area has been increased by 50% in the last few months. So we have gone to 6,500 square kilometers. While Chennai and Kolkata are also planning to expand their areas, at least double them. These are some figures I found from the internet. Internet on the website, somehow many more areas are identified as regions, metropolitan regions, and these are the statistics that's available. I was quite surprised to see this. Maharashtra, as we know, is the one of the most urbanizing states in India, and it has several. In fact, Maharashtra has identified and allocated the roles of urban planning, spatial planning, devolved it to its urban local bodies much before 74th Amendment ever happened. So many of the things that pre-existed in Gujarat and Maharashtra, and it also recognized the need for regional planning, and it has currently 3 metropolitan regions for Mumbai, Pune and Nagpur. And the Mumbai metropolitan region was introduced in 1967, delineated, and a plan was actually made by a committee put up by the government. The plan was approved, and then MMRDA was brought in to implement and make further changes. Our ability to make direct further changes has been curtailed by MPC Act. Now MMRDA has been asked, in the Act, MMRDA is assigned the role of being an assistant to the MPC, and that's how the new regional plan was made under the overall guidance of Metropolitan Planning Committee. This is my background. Like the essay on cow, I have to say this in whichever forum about regions in Maharashtra. Now coming to the main theme of urban and regional planning and the strategies related to them, I thought I put together a small number of issues that we identified in our discourses, in our routine works, as issues that are related to development plans and regional plans. But in terms of development plans, the issues are more to do with implementation of the development plans, whereas with the regional plans, there are issues related to what are regions and how do you plan for those regions. The planning itself is an issue there. In the development plans, the stages of planning itself is one point under discussion. Many parts of India have 2-stage and 3-stage planning. Maharashtra normally does 1-stage planning, a detailed planning at survey number level for city plans. But we did recently try to attempt with the Mumbai development plan with 2-stage planning, with the plan that was scrapped later. But the main issue that remained was if the main plan talks about, becomes a structure plan, and then we expect that the details of local areas are done later, and in the meanwhile the main plan gets sanctioned. The issue was, when do you do those smaller plans? In the meanwhile, if people apply for permissions, what do you do? So obviously the solution was these two exercises must happen simultaneously, but since it was not a pre-thought procedure, it could not be done that way. So when and how you do it and how much manpower you will deploy is a question. And the second question related to this is, to what extent do local people get a chance to be participants in the local area planning? And planning standards, and all my colleagues here from the Directorate will agree that what we are currently using are prepared in 1979. And I am sure there were a number of committees that made improvements to it. I am aware of one committee, Suktankar committee, which made new planning standards in 2001, if I am not mistaken, which is still sitting in Mantralaya, not coming out. But we see many GRs that happen in one day. But this particular improvement somehow has still not seen the light of the day. But there is scope for rationalization of the standards in that. All the obsolete activities were taken out in that particular proposal, and emerging trends in urban planning were introduced as amenities again. And development control regulations in Maharashtra, we have the story of all cities having their own regulations, major cities, corporations, and all councils, municipal councils having one common set of regulations called municipal standardized regulations for ABC class municipal councils. After that, government of Maharashtra asked us to prepare common set of regulations for the corporations around Mumbai, excluding Mumbai, in Mumbai metropolitan region. So a set of regulations were prepared. Then government directly prepared a set of regulations for D-class municipal corporations. In the meanwhile, under ease of doing business, before some of these were approved, now we have made unified regulations, standard regulations for development plans, regional plans and everything included under one roof. And some of us have not found this very useful, but the government is going ahead with this, so we have given some suggestions to it. So we may have one single document in Maharashtra very soon. Then we also have issue related to subversion of plan provisions, particularly the land use provisions. While a plan is made with lot of caution and lot of information basis, now the government is introducing state level schemes which sit on any land use, which just do not respect the provisions in the land use. And the second thing that happened in Maharashtra is that the government has a scheme that it doesn't matter what land use you have, you go to the government, you ask for the land use you want and pay a premium based on what it was and what you are asking for. So that again does not allow us to really foresee into the future as to what are the land uses going to be and then what infrastructure requirements will arise out of this. We are unable to predict anymore. Then implementation of plans itself has a major difficulty. I mean, most of them are related to implementation, but that municipalities do not have a statutory role to kind of implement the plans. There is no time-bound kind of action there, and then they have no budgets for it. So a lot of discourses in Maharashtra have come out with one or two suggestions. These are not my suggestions. These came up in many discussions. One is that there should be a budgetary P budget, not poor budget, but plan budget. So annually the municipality must split the 20-year plan, development plan into various stages, and at each, and there are land acquisition components, there are development components, there are amenity, social amenity creation components, etc. So each municipality must allocate annually a budget towards all these heads, and then that should be statutory. And secondly, there should be a post of statutory city planner, like city engineer, and there should be a department with multidisciplinary activities. And then as far as enforcement is concerned, the proposals that came up were there could be police force deployed with each municipality. At higher level, they can be, many more numbers can be hired through police department. They can be deployed to each municipality so that action can be taken on plan violations, and there could be specific courts called MRTP courts, which take very fast decisions on plan violations again. Then dealing with redevelopments. We had the issue of redevelopment starting with slums, then we went to dilapidated buildings, then we think of municipal quarters and chawls and government built properties that require redevelopment. Then we say that we need redevelopments because there are higher FSI is offered by the government for that area. For various reasons we have redevelopments. The whole state is kind of literally under redevelopment. And DCR instruments are the only ones that are currently being used. Higher FSI, open it up for market is the universal solution that we are using. So it will take some time for us to understand the implications of this singular approach to all kinds of redevelopments. And the second thing that was tried in Maharashtra is to create a kind of maintenance fund so that redevelopment becomes affordable to people. In the regional planning, these are more like what I identified as issues. The nature of regional plan itself. Regional plan is not, I was part of the World Bank's global labs that were conducted across the world in 8 countries on metropolitan planning. And we found, I was quite surprised to find during these 8 discussions that regional planning is not a subject at all across the world. We are so familiar with this, but most of the world is not even familiar with this. They are not familiar with metropolitan regions, they are not familiar with statutory planning. Many countries have some amount of regional strategy. Region itself is not defined, it could be strategic, the definition, the delineation, and they can be issue based, they can be sector based, they can be defense based, they can be port based, and all kinds of regions and strategies are being developed. For example, New York Regional Plan Association is an NGO. They are preparing regional plans like us once in 20 years. And it took me some time to understand it's not government in the first place. And that others are allowed to make plans like this, and government is actually trying to follow some of those plans. Then now cities like Barcelona, Paris, Seoul, they are all trying to move some cities in South Africa, they're all moving towards statutory regional plans. But many African countries and Latin American countries are trying to follow our example of moving towards statutory regional planning. So probably we have a role as regional planners from India to extend our knowledge and capacities to many other places and also learn from them as to what is good out of non-statutory regional planning. Then adequacy of current framework of MPCs to deal with metropolitan planning. I remember the last discussion we had with Mr. Shivaram Krishnan as part of his metropolitan governance workshops that he held across the country, and he as much admitted that I believe he is one of the authors of 74th Amendment, main author maybe. So he said that he said that if he gets time, he would like to actually modify the 74th Amendment in respect of metropolitan planning committees. He said one of the flaws it had was that it undermined totally the existence and capacities of the metropolitan development authorities. They tried to write them off, and now they realize that you can't do that unless there is a similar institutional structure made available to MPCs. And why make a new institution available to it? Use the existing institutions and marry them together. In Maharashtra, in many occasions we have discussed that the best thing that could happen under MPC Act is that like authorities like ours, our board should be replaced by MPC. It becomes truly representational, elected people who are elected for the purpose of the region, but this we find that politically is not acceptable at all, and also at bureaucratic level this is not acceptable. That they will report to chota mota elected representatives and not to CM and his nominees. That's not acceptable. And the second thing, MPCs and delineation of regions based on administrative units. We know that regions follow certain other logic like commute and natural barriers, and they do not really encompass full talukas or full districts. So data flows that happen at certain administrative levels then do not help us. When we were preparing regional plan for Mumbai, I mean you can't get GDP data at any other level, disaggregated level. So we were recommending to Government of India when Mr. P.K. Mohanty was in Housing Ministry under the 12th plan discussion forums, we suggested that why don't you actually convert metropolitan regions in terms of redirect them along the districts or redistrict. Divide the districts so that they become full districts. Then he actually taught me how this is illogical what I am suggesting. And he said, we know in this country how districts are made on caste, on religion and on some other criteria, and the districts cannot be asked to follow spatial planning frameworks. And secondly, spatial planning boundaries are far frequently redelineated, whereas administrative boundaries are more frozen for a longer period. So he said these two cannot be just adjusted, so I don't think we can go ahead with those suggestions. Then one of the issues again with regional planning is that MPCs and DPCs coexist in a district because we are part districts MPCs. The DPC will continue, MPC will continue, ZP will continue, collector will continue, MMRDA will also continue. All of us are doing some developmental functions, everybody has some funds at their disposal except MPC. Oh, last slide. So therefore there has to be some kind of political economy reorganization and readjustment so that we are not duplicating, we are not leaving a gap. Then the scope of regional plans, at least in the new regional plan that we made, we didn't think land use and development control are at all the main contents, should not be the main contents of the regional plan, even though they are statutory. So we went beyond that. I was planning to show some other presentation regarding regional plan, but I will not show that now. But the three major proposals or four major proposals we made beyond land use. One is improving the governance framework in the region. How do you expand, create new municipalities, allow merger of municipalities? These suggestions were made and government actually started acting on them, citing their draft regional plan. Second thing is that to disperse tertiary sector employment, a set of growth centers are proposed across any planning jurisdiction, local planning jurisdiction, and we hope to take them forward in a strategic manner. Third is to bring a balance in development between urban and rural areas. To actually, we did a lot of analysis of rural 1,000 villages in MMR, and we classified them into deficiency clusters, and depending on the type of deficiency, a local development center is proposed where joint action by all concerned government departments and institutions like MMRD can happen, so that slowly these urbanizing villages can move in a very forward direction in a planned manner. And lastly, even though MRTP doesn't say so, passing of all development plans of constituent cities within a region and special planning authority areas within a region may pass through the regional planning authority or metropolitan planning committee, so that their consistency with regional objectives is checked. These are broadly what I identified, and then in conclusion, solutions seem to be possible. We need to have a little consensus amongst even planners as to how do we go about it, and all these institutions like ITPI can handhold us in moving in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. You have touched all the issues regarding the regional plans. Now I request Professor Joy Singh, Head of the Architecture and Regional Planning Department, IIT Kharagpur.
Very good afternoon. I think when you get a personal call and also a mail from someone like Professor Dr. D.S. Mishram Sahab or Pradeep Kapoorji, it's very hard to avoid or leave the responsibility of not attending this conference. So you don't leave, but you leave this symposium. I'm not talking about LEAV, I'm talking about LIV. Yeah. So the ability to leave is very important, and it's very tough to speak after my Dada, my senior. I should introduce this way our distinguished alumnus, Professor Dr. Chetan Vaidya of IIT Kharagpur, and Madam Uma. But still I have a responsibility, because if I look at the auditorium, it's a fairly and uniformly distributed population across the rows and columns. So I think the livability index of this auditorium is not that bad, especially after a post-lunch with so nice a food which Mishramji has organized and supplied. I just met him at the end of the lunch, and he just said to me, just look at, I said, sir, it's like an airport, and the flights have got cancelled, and everybody is having some extra food in the airport. All the airlines are supplying. So I think let's get to the brass task, and my little presentation is a little shadow to what the Honorable Minister Aditya Ji spoke in the morning. The ease to leave, the ease to leave, which is livability. It's very important, and I just pose in front of you a small argument in the next 25 slides, but I can watch the relationship between the watch of Dr. Mishram Shahab and his eyes. It's about 15 minutes, so I'll just rush through them because I suppose that I'm addressing a very enlightened crowd. So that I don't have to really define and establish and go through most of these things. So what happens these days is that it's a very well-established thing within planning and beyond planning that we have a reductionist problem in our education. We just do more and more of a small and small thing, and as Chetan, Professor Vaidya said, you cannot afford to be in your little room and not really get out. So when you see a management person is barging in, you have to know a little bit of management. So this has created a problem, and the problem has led to a lot of uncertainty. There are 4 of them. So I'll just go to those 4 slides. The first problem is economic, and everybody in this auditorium faces that, big or small. So this is Jose Stiglitz, the Nobel laureate, and he says that there's a huge problem which cuts across the world, which is the problem of inequality. Inequality, and Professor Amartya Sen got his Nobel Prize in inequality by solving the Gini's curve and the Gini's coefficient and the Lorentz curve and things like that. So whatever you do, there is a little bit of a black hole, either at the macro or the micro level, where the development and the investment and everything gets sucked in. So there's a coercion. There's a huge coercion. That's the first problem. The second problem is that there's a huge tension. And the Honorable Minister talked about the tension. He was so nice. I really got impressed, and I think everybody will agree in this auditorium. And he was so grounded. And he had examples in his presentation. And this was so fine. And this is the Oslo Accord, where the 3 great minds more than a decade back thought that the end of all wars in the Middle East, and just look at Middle East right now, they're about to start some kind of a third world war or so, with all, love and consideration, of missiles and ICBMs and things like that. And if something goes wrong, the first thing that happens is the stock market, just swings. And when the stock market swings, Mumbai swings. And when Mumbai swings, the rest of India swings. Yeah, so that's what happened. So that's why we are connected. It's not an isolated phenomenon. The third problem is climatic, and this is US Vice President Al Gore. And I'm sure a lot of you in this auditorium, if not everyone, has seen the movie that he created, An Inconvenient Truth. And when he had made that movie, not many people listened to him. Some said he's talking too much, he's crossing borders, and is saying something which is not supposed to say. Let him remain as a politician. And that's exactly what Professor Baidya was saying. And planners is one very unique profession, which is a consortium mind. They bring together different people under the same fold, and also has a special ability of analytics and the normative mind. But there's a dual role of organizing others, which I think no other profession really teaches that much. So we are a very special breed of people, and we need to prove ourselves. So the third problem is climatic, and the Honorable Minister talked about environment so much that I need not say anything at this point. It was so well established. The fourth and the last problem, of course there can be a fifth one and a sixth one, is a socio-cultural disorder. And the person that you see there is Abraham Maslow. And he's one person whose name cuts across everywhere. Management, planning, political sciences, economics. The Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is there in a later slide, is a very important thing. It's actually an Indian philosophy which Maslow converted into a Western hierarchy of needs. It was actually based on Sri Aurobindo's hierarchy of minds, which went to California, and the Californian school converted it. So whatever we do, there is always a little boy under that flyover when you are going up to catch a fast train, or there's a boy outside the portico of an airport when you are rushing in to catch an Emirates to Dubai, or there is a little lady on the footpath of Indian Museum when you are just barging in with the British Council team from London. They are always waiting there with some kind of disorder. And whatever big talks we make, or whatever big buildings that we make, somewhere has a lacuna, somewhere has a gap. And MIT, Professor Bishopir Sharnal and his colleagues, Professor Notts and others, I was talking to Professor Kumar this morning, and he has a wonderful book coming up in 6 months, city planning, and there is a lead by Professor Sharnal there. So MIT has realized that what's most important in urban planning is a sense of the people, So they call it a sensibility lab, the ability to sense things. So much of what I am intending to say, which is so much an Indian philosophy, which was said in the, we have that Saraswati Vandana. Why do we at all have a Saraswati Vandana? It cannot be just a ritual or lighting a lamp. And there is something, the Sarada, she is giving us the Sar. She's giving us Dan, she's giving us the Sar of knowledge. So when we connect knowledge, it becomes wisdom. So she's the goddess of wisdom. Otherwise, Saraswati is not important in our life. So we have to interpret our own heritage in the right sense. And this is something which Maslow says again and again. So see, these are some of the 4 problems that we have. So given this problem, the world has realized that there has to be a balance, and there are different definitions to balance. Here is one small definition of balance, which we realized in our research on the ability to live, which is livability. And today, in the last 5 years, livability as a mission is also a part of the smart city mission. It's also a part of the smart city mission, and it's somehow between the very IT or the ITS, the information technology driven kind of things on the one hand, and the more normative, something which probably a JNU or a TIS professor will start talking about, the socialistic form of planning. So where do you hit a balance? And we found out in IIT Kharagpur, and there are others all around the world, that the balance remains somewhere in livability, which strikes between the socio-cultural and the socio-economic. So these are, I think this slide is not that visible to at least to the last 5 or 6 rows. So I'll just read it. Stability, healthcare, culture, environment, education, infrastructure together brings a lot of sense to cities today. And when you look at Vienna, Melbourne, and Osaka, you don't talk about London, New York, and Tokyo. They are the second cities in those countries, which has other things than New York, London, and Tokyo, which Vienna and Melbourne and Osaka provides, and they become the most livable cities of the world. And you have all the kachras in Varanasi, but you go to Varanasi again and again. You have all the kachras in Jerusalem, and at least three group of religious people, they land up. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam in the Jerusalem. They all come to that same city again and again and again. Why? We have to. I think in physical planning, in spatial planning, we need to have a mission of including some of these territories which Professor Vaidya was saying. We just tread into that and bring them back and make it tangible, marketable, and also quantifiable. That's very important. So one of the most important things that the Smart Cities Council, we are working on this, and we just had a collaboration, Professor Chattopadhyay, I, and a few others of IIT Kharagpur. We did a workshop with MIT, then Georgia Tech, and others, also Columbia. So we worked on this, and they really appreciated that it's a combination of workability, the ability to work, the ability to sustain, which again has the three domains everyone knows, and that finally leads to livability. So the three abilities is a conjoined perspective that we need to solve at this moment. So I quickly run through the next 4 or 5 slides, which is an example of Kolkata. Now Kolkata is not a metropolis, and it's called a premature metropolis. And this is something which Nikhil Bose, 1965, Scientific Arabic, a small article which became famous for about 10 years, and everybody was quoting, from Biplab Sengupta to Mohit Bhattacharya, to all the planners at that point of time. I mean, this is very important because all the cities in India started becoming a metropolis, did not become a being of a metropolis. So it's an ontological problem without the benefits of the Industrial Revolution, which a London or a Sheffield or a New York had enjoyed. And somehow, though it's a past, but it's not a very distant past. So somehow, when we integrate the colonial core with the smart periphery of any city, we inherit this problem. And Nikhil Bose still remains pertinent in the case of Kolkata at least. And we have done a lot of projects, and we are facing this problem. Just give you a very quick example. If you're trying to put a flyover and you try to get it to south of Kolkata, which is called Behala, where in the last 1.5 years a flyover has collapsed, a bridge has collapsed, and till date it has not been repaired, and it's almost the connection being broken. And when you cross that bridge, you enter a huge south suburban area of the city, which has become a part of the Kolkata Municipal Corporation. And it still has those 25 feet, 33 feet, sometimes 16 feet wide village maintained roads, madam, which has actually become an urban road. And when a lorry comes from the other side, you don't have another lorry. You cannot afford another lorry from my side, So that's the state of South Calcutta. Though south of South Calcutta we are designing. So we have patches. So we have patches of colonial hangovers within our modern city. So we cannot just escape and jump. And we don't have the money and invest to totally gentrify or transform all those areas. So we need to be very pragmatic. What exactly we are going to do with our cities, how we are going to make them livable. So Calcutta, so I did my little PhD on livability about 15 years back, and one of my students who has also worked with Tathagata, Professor Tathagata Chatterjee, sitting in the second row, Orpon. So two of us are presenting works on livability within India and around the world. So this is what we developed through graphics and some computer softwares, and we found out that livability is sort of attainable, though Calcutta cannot be that smart or that green or that inclusive, because the river, which was first established by the Germans at Baki Bazar, or the French at the Chandanagar, and finally the British on the East Bank, still has imparted the city a maritime channel. So the best connection to the city is the river. The best tourism to the city is the river. The best green spaces to the city is still the river. The best alleys of the city, same as Mumbai, is the river. But somehow the river has always taken a backseat, and we are talking about flyovers and ceilings and all those other things. But we don't have simple solutions. Small is beautiful, as Schumacher said. So livability gives us a wonderful paradigm to look at things. So what we did, small is beautiful, in IIT Kharagpur, we looked at Bengal and a little bit of outside Bengal like Odisha and others, and looked at the farm, the cottage, the home and the MSMEs, the small industries, because the big economy can ruffle. Something goes wrong in New York, as I said, goes wrong in Mumbai, goes wrong in Kolkata, but the little thing does not go wrong that much. So let's also look at the little thing, and this is something which a Charles Landry or a Frank Gehry will also say, when we talk about, and they have transformed a lot of European cities like Bilbao. 2005 ISOCUP Congress was there, and the entire city is transformed using Frank Gehry's stick. They developed a Guggenheim Museum, and they found out the industries during the Spanish Armada. They designed those fish-scale Mina ka kaam, jo Islamic architecture mein hota hai, that comes on the Guggenheim Museum. It's fantastic. So it's a blend of urban design, architecture, small economy, the people, the community of the place. It's total movement. So this is something, and India is absolutely, is flooded with such opportunities. I think Spain only has 5% of what India has, 5,000 or 10,000 years of economy, history, and population. And somehow we are not looking at that. And we need to look at that very powerfully and very closely and very, very meaningfully. So we did this, so we picked up an area called Nadia, which is also in West Bengal and also in Bangladesh, which means the land of rivers. And believe it or not, there are about 1,000 big to small rivers in that region, and we found out there are more than 10,000 deprived, impoverished small industries which exist along the rivers. If they are tapped, they can be created. So we got a project from the University of London. We are doing it, the Queen Mary, and if you Google, you'll find it. And there's a 10,000 crore economy around the Durga Puja, and it's absolutely informal. And we government, we cannot even pour in 1 crore of rupee for a project. There's a bureaucracy, there's a pipeline problem, there's a line department problem, there's so many issues which was so beautifully described in the first plenary session by the 3 eminent speakers. But if you look at that, things become very simple. So we should have a mission of including that. And this, I'm not talking from theory. We are actually doing projects under this, which is the Science and Heritage Initiative. Chetan Saab knows about this. It's called the Sandhi. It's happening in IIT Kanpur. It's happening in IIT Bombay. And it's happening in IIT Gandhinagar. Padma Shri Michel Danino is in charge of the IIT Gandhinagar, and so on and so on and so on. So I'm not talking about Sandhi. What I'm saying is the whole inclusion of small economy and looking at the ability of the small communities, which are millions, and giving them an impart to live. So that's very important. So this is a working methodology, a livable approach, which I'm just showing. I'm not getting into the details of this. So the key balance in one word is between the left-wing inclusive growth and the right-wing smart growth. That's very important, And you look at that symbol, that's Indian yoga, And inside the human body, we actually maintain this balance between the 2 life currents. So we should bring that out and look at the external motor and the sensory currents of the city, So there's some motor projects and there's some sensory projects, And there it has a response to stimuli interaction. So this is the sensibility lab of MIT. So they are looking at urban planning from this angle. So I'll just request all of you to look at these literature, because this is the latest in urban planning. And India has all this resource as heritage. The West is just inventing it. For India, it's the discovery. It's just a discovery. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, for the West, it is an invention. For India, it's a discovery. That's the beauty. And we planners, can really, really, really play a very important role in all this. Yeah, as Madam said, the mic, so sometimes within left wing and right wing. And then you become the Buddha, the middle part. You take the middle tone, amplitude, and everything, and you proceed. So this is a key balance, the framework of wholeness. So the mission can have a lot of things. I'm just giving you 3 very humbly, in a very simple way. One is welfare economy. Look at that little diagram. I picked it up from the web long back. So that's a whole tree. and the tree is also having network, and the network also has dendrograms, statistical distribution of data, and it also has branches and trunks, and then it again becomes a tree. So the same data, the same special analytics can be seen in 4 different angles. So I think only a planner and an architect or a sensible planner can actually look at that. I think other professions are not that equipped. So our profession is very, very rich, and we can really pick this up very powerfully. And welfare economists, everybody knows in this room, Dr. Mohabul Haq and many others, Muhammad Yunus, they're all great pioneers, including Amartya Sen and others. They're very powerful, but I think names are not important. The idea and the action plans, most important are the action plans. The second important thing comes from a little old, and he was an economist, but he said something which today has become the red field, brown field, green field transformation, which we call the inverted U curve. We use that in environment and economics. So the countries which were polluting the world 50 years back, they are producing the green technologies right now. The countries which are producing the brown technologies right now are polluting the world are probably lagging behind, like China, India, or Malaysia. So what Kuznets says that everything has a hope. So it's dynamics, it's over time. There's nothing like this, oh, it's so bad, nothing will happen to Mumbai, it's all bleak, Kolkata ka kuch nahi hoga, it's all gone. It's nothing like that. Everything can be seen over time, and it has a dynamics. So Kuznets gave us a wonderful hope, and we need to position our small project within a perspective plan that gets plugged to a CDP and becomes a part of a large long-term plan. So we need to have dynamics of planning. That's very, very important. So one of the very important mission which is happening worldwide is looking at dynamics of planning. And of course, the thing which I already said is the ladder of needs, reaching great heights. So we cannot be just physiological and just look at safety, but we need love and belonging. The recipes of happiness. Beautiful book by Montgomery, The Recipes of Happiness. And then only we get something which is called esteem. If I cannot give esteem to that little boy under that flyover or that old lady outside at the museum, then I think all our planning is all fine. Maybe a lot of people are appreciating it, but it's not holistic. I think everybody in this room will agree. And that's what's happening. It's very easy to make these words, but it's very hard to make, as Gandhiji said, be that change yourself, which you are trying to see outside. So that's very, very important. And it's like a fulcrum. So Maslow says going up and down. So it's like wave mechanics. So we should have projects below, we should have projects meso, and we should have very large projects. The planners of any state, city, district, or at the national level should see that there is a linkage between all these projects through NITs, IITs, SPAs, and all the institutions, along with ITPIs and other organizations, along with MMRDA and CITCO, along with KMDA, and so on, along with the NCR organizations, DDA, and everything. So we need to create a network of organization, and I think someone like Vishram Sahab, 20 years, when I was in 1996, I was telling Chetan Da, I met him first, and I think he looks the same, almost like the Brahma of planning, ek kalpa mein ek Brahma hota hai. I'm not trying to eulogize him, hats off. I was telling this to Tathagata Da, and for 25 years, I think you agree, he remains, some elixir of life, Amrita, he never changes. That same zeal, that same running, I'm not oiling up anything, mind it. What I'm saying is truth, so I expect the young boys in this auditorium to emulate the best in him. That's the best in him, to sustain. And he lives, he affords, and he walks, and he sustains. Those are the 3 paradigms of the Smart City Council. He's a living demonstration of that. So it's a beautiful example you have right inside the auditorium. And I'm again saying, I'm not oiling it up, I'm not eulogizing, I'm just saying hard facts. Believe it or not, whether I'm right or wrong. Believe it or not, whether I'm right or wrong. It's up to you to find that out. So the objectives of a metropolis is livable, and it should also be affordable. So we did a lot of work on this. I'm not reading all this, so I'll just go back to the previous slide. So it's a combination of affordability, livability, and all the abilities. So we did a little walk, and this walk was recognized, and somewhere I was telling to Professor Kumar, in 2012, we published this book to TERI, Sustainable Urban Planning. It's now called Sustainable Urban Planning. It's been edited a little more, and fortunately, it has become the textbook of more than 50 schools of planning in India. Yeah, so our mission from Kharagpur and others has become successful, and that's Jane Jacobs, a lady who makes all the difference. I was taught Jacobs when I was there in the US, and that's Orpon, my doctoral student. He has just submitted his PhD, and probably is going to Bangladesh for a project, which is a ADBI project, and that's the thing, and that's almost coming to the end of it, looking at livability as a national paradigm. So you have to create extraordinary living places which are just not peaceful and restful, smart and tidy, but they're also very artful, and they're also very cultivating, you know. So it gives that little boy and that old lady hope in the city. If we can do that, we can create wonderful cities. And I think ITPA will be a great garner to do that. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now, we have 10 minutes for question and answer. So, house is open. Anybody wants to question the key speaker, please raise their hands. Hello.
I'm Anil Sule, architect and I'm architect town planner Anil Sule. I have a question for Professor Sen. Are we talking about happiness index for comparison of cities?
No, we'll take the all questions first, and then the concerned key speaker will answer. Second one. Sir.
I have been asked to ask a question, so I
Sir, please introduce yourself and please stand up.
Ashok Kumar, School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi. I have been asked to ask a question, so I'm going to ask one. Uma, you were talking about MMRDA and then the Metropolitan Planning Committee in for the region. Is it true that the Act says that MMRDA would assist metropolitan planning committees? That is in the Act. Act doesn't. I just want to confirm.
Next one. Anybody? Mr. Girkar.
Sir, I am Girkar. I am the Deputy Director. My question to Uma Madam. Generally for urban areas in municipal councils, corporation, we do the development plans. Out of that, immediately for the rural areas, for the region area, we do the regional plan. But there is no intermediate planning for the outskirts of the city, that is the fringe area. We do only the regional plans, and that is a broad planning is there. Generally we do the zonings. But what I observed is that generally in the fringe area, lot of development occurs. Because of the less land value of that land, people prefer to stay there. And then what happened? There is an unplanned development in that area. So my suggestion is that in the fringe area, and generally what happened in the fringe area, thereafter after development, we do go for the expansion of the municipal council or corporation. So that is then too late. So my suggestion is that we should do some intermediate planning like development plans. And for that the corporations or council may be authorized to do the planning for the influence area of the municipal council area. I just want comment from you. Thanks.
Next one. Ladies, man.
My question is.
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Anupama Karanam. I'm a planner at SIDCO and right now working with Mumbai Port Trust for their master planning exercise. This question is actually to Uma ma'am and also to Joyce sir and probably the whole fraternity. Yesterday I was attending a conference right here in the same premises which was conducted by the Bharati Vidyapeeth, and what I found was there was a complete session by speakers who were not practicing architecture but were into journalism. There was someone from Architecture Live, there was someone from cartoon series. There's a guy who is an architect from Sept and he does a cartoon series called Leewardist, which is very famous. And they were all talking of how architecture is diversified into so many aspects. So it just got me thinking. We've been discussing a lot in the ITPI MRC about this, and being at Mumbai Port Trust right now, what I find is that all the ports, though they do their own things, their activities are a little quantifiable, their functions are a little organized, because of which, or I don't know for what reason, but they have everything at an Indian level. There's a non-governmental kind of an association which looks at what are the kind of charges that every port is applying, what is every port doing, and some activities like even township planning is done by 2-3 ports together. So the ports that are having lands for township are working together towards the land policy and all. Can we planners, our fraternity is very wide, creativity has no benchmarking generally. Can the fraternity find out a means by which there is a kind of benchmarking that can be done to the creative aspect of our planning? So, which also includes, as you said correctly, sir, Mr. Singh, that it is a multi-pronged approach. We can't be falling behind because we don't know economics or we don't know socio-economics. I'm struggling with the Sassoon-Dock master plan, which I completely believe is not a physical plan. There's no need for a physical plan, but a need to actually organize them and have them do the plan themselves and just make way for how they can do it. Is there any way by which the planning fraternity, which is so spread out, which is so based on qualitative aspects, can be brought down to some kind of semblance, apart from doing DCRs and plans, is what I'm trying to ask. Thank you.
Next one. Anybody? We'll take the last 2 questions.
Sir, I am Jagdish Rajurkar, Project Manager, Indian Institute of Management, Nagpur. My question to Uma ma'am, planning norm standards. Each city has own standards and each city has own DCRs. So whether these norms are applicable for the municipal councils or the municipal corporations or the special planning authorities. Because in Maharashtra, some of the special planning authorities developing the SEZ, Special Economic Zones. So is it applicable for norms for the special planning authorities or the only municipal councils or corporations? So kindly comment on it.
Anybody? This side.
I am Professor Gohar, urban planner. The Kirker's question and the general discussion on this topic invites suggestion that when in the third 5-year plan we accepted the regional planning and the states were directed to change the law, and we have to wait the 1992 when the 73rd and 74th amendment came and nothing has been done on the third 5-year plan suggestions. We have only prepared the regional plan, by which time the peri-urban areas which were growing like anything, and then we are including those. At some places the peri-urban areas are included and then they are excluded. So urbanization, de-urbanization. What is this process? And then another aspect is, in the first master plan of Pune in 1952 prepared by COP on behalf of the Pune Corporation. This issue of planning areas spreading outside the municipal limit was very much discussed. And in 1995, after the Second World War, the areas on the outskirts were a target of migrators. And therefore, a ICS Bhatt committee was appointed in the master government, and they say there should be a committee which will decide the planning permission under the chairmanship of collector, which never happened. So all these things are required coordination and proper things, and the output to the regional plan implementation should have time limit. Otherwise we are wasting the time and we are only preparing the regional plan. Now all the regional plans of Maharashtra, 36 districts are ready, but there is no common regional plan of 36 districts to sort out which are the proposals which are of great importance, which should be also implemented first as a totality.
Thank you. Now, question. I request anybody? Take. Okay. Now I request Professor Sen to answer the question.
One question. I am MS Khan, ex-chief counselor, government of UP. I asked Mr. Yuma, have you prepared any regional plan in Maharashtra? Or there is any act to prepare this plan and implement other than Bedford planning?
Thank you. Sir.
I think there are two questions for me. One is full and one is shared with Madam. So I'm giving the second part, but Madam will eventually finally say. There was a first question by Anil Sue regarding the happiness index of the city. Happiness is a special project by itself. If you go to Bhutan, it's one of the most happy regions in the world. It has been recognized by the World Council, the United Nations Environment Program. And fortunately, in IIT Kharagpur, we have a Center for Happiness. One of my own colleague, Professor Priyadarshi Patnaik, is in charge of that. And the chief of Bhutan Happiness Council is a visiting faculty to IIT Kharagpur. So I know a little bit because one of my own doctoral student, Tanima, she's doing a work on urban rejuvenation, which Chetan Sahab and others have been working for the last 10 years under the JNURM and others, where she's trying to put in happiness. Happiness, if you look at, I mentioned a book, Montgomery's Recipes of Happiness. So if you can get a copy of that book, it's a very powerful book, and it gives the 9 pillars of happiness. It's a cumulative causation. It's like you're in class 1. So the first pillar is me, joy, and the second pillar, and then I think the fourth and the fifth pillar is resilience. So all these keywords are there, and eventually you get into freedom. Now, freedom is a very rare thing. If you can give freedom to your own citizens, you get a Plato or a Da Vinci or a Rabindranath Tagore, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. Into that heaven of freedom, let my country awake. So but that cannot happen in one go. It will never happen and cannot happen. It's a cumulative causation. So we make the city partially affordable. We look at people. We have, as there was one beautiful question, in addition to the regional plans, we have the more micro planning. We have the micro planning. We have small action plans, what we call incremental plan in Turkey. Like in Turkey, they have incremental plans, like monthly plans or bi-monthly plans. So we need to have some of those techniques. And in fact, at the end of the day, we do most of the work like that. Like an architectural urban design project is sometimes a 3 months or a 4 months or a 6 months project with a little bit of planning. So happiness, to calculate a happiness index is fine. It's all analysis, producing another PhD. But to come down and ground it from a smart city project or from a livability project or from an inclusive growth project or from a certain project. There's so many projects which were mentioned by the previous speakers, the last 5 speakers before me. I think everything leads to happiness. Happiness cannot be in vacuum. When there's a project which gets completed, the owners are satisfied, the investors are satisfied, the primary stakeholders are satisfied, everybody becomes collectively happy, but they become happy at different levels, because somebody has provided the money but doesn't have the land, somebody has provided the land, didn't have the money, somebody was like a middleman, unique middleman, who has made the marriage between the two groups, like Hitco and Sitco. I'm not calling them middle, but the middle organizations who will tie up, like, the government cannot develop, so they create a company outside the government, which is also not a private organization, but has all the powers of a private organization, but it's still a government organization extended. So I think if we can bridge all these, then we create happiness. So definitely happiness index is a part of that. I think I am taking up a lot of time, so I'll just come to the second question, is that there was a lot of sense in what she said, the Bharatiya Vidyapit workshop which she attended yesterday. So I'll come to the solutions. I think one very good, important way which Tapushda knows from the West Bengal regional chapter. Where is Tapushda? Yeah, there is Tapushda. Tapushda, we have been requesting the WBRC, the regional chapter, again and again to have exhibitions, outreach and dissemination stalls at Academy of Fine Arts or Calcutta Information Center. It hasn't happened. It's 15 times, 50 times, 500 times more powerful. Please don't mind, please, anybody don't mind, more powerful than doing a conference or a symposium. Last 2 years we have stalls in Book Fair, and Gautamda knows, sitting next. We had thousands and thousands of copies of being sold, with interactions, school children's coming, knowing what architecture is. Not aisa hai, mera beta architect में join किया, वो architecture बन जाएगा, that kind, not that kind of a statement anymore. It's still there in the general, So we have to clear all those ambiguities, and for that we need these congresses and symposiums. But with this, we also need a Sitco exhibition, and that Sitco exhibition can also be in the different Mumbai stations, outside the Mumbai stations. When people are coming out and going in, they also experience that. It can be in the metro network of NCR, the National Capital Region. It can be in Kolkata on a riverside cruise along the riverside line. So these are the projects that we have to take as initiatives. So this is the way that you looked for, through which you can bring down planning at the school level, so that a little boy and a little girl wants to become a planner. Thank you.
First, to my answer to Dr. Ashok Kumar, I confirm that the Metropolitan Planning Committees Act of Maharashtra makes a place for MMRDA to assist them in preparation of plans. In what way, I'll tell you. The MPC Act has certain amendments to MRTP Act, which is Maharashtra Regional and Town Planning Act, and MPC Act also has an amendment to MMRDA Act. In the amendment it made to the MMRDA Act, it removed the word in MMRDA Act that it shall henceforth prepare new plans for the region. It removed that part, and it said it shall assist the MPC in preparation of the regional plans. So that's how the legal provision is made, and that is citing that the MMRDA was able to prepare the new regional plan on behalf of the MPC, and the MPC appointed sectoral subcommittees and all of that, and finally the regional plan that was made was approved by the MPC and not by MMRDA. Secondly, someone mentioned about this fringe area planning. I think this is something that kind of skipped our attention for a long period, and that's a very right thing that you suggested. But what is happening in Mumbai metropolitan region at the moment is, after the regional plan is approved, we are going to make certain detailed planning exercises. Ideally, we could have done it along with the regional plan, but we do not know whether the government will approve it in toto or it will make some changes in the zoning. Thereafter, once it approves, based on the approved plans, we are going to prepare detailed plans for the areas which are earmarked for urbanizable zones, earmarked for urbanization, and also around each village, there is a village expansion kind of provision in the rule book. Every village that has a 200 meters around it, allocated for intensive development, which takes care of the expanding needs of the populations of the region. And thirdly, around each railway station, suburban or metro station that's going to come up in the rural parts of the region or urbanizing parts of the region will have a ring of 500 meters around them for intensification of use. So for each of these areas, which is zoned for urbanization, which is meant for village expansion and which is meant for transit-oriented kind of development around the stations, for each of them detailed planning exercises are going to be made. And probably one of the ways of addressing exactly municipal peripheral area could be to zone it as urbanizable. Then it automatically comes under this framework. But when you look at the region as a whole, when you are preparing the zoning, somehow it doesn't look entirely logical to zone it as urbanizable around the municipality, but rather maybe you allow certain intensive activities to happen within a certain radius around the municipality with slightly sparse FSIs. Could be one way of dealing with it. Mr. Patharkar probably has worked on this in the past, so maybe he will add some knowledge to this. Then Anupama, what you suggested is probably happening on ground. We may not have realized. So for a long time, planning profession and institutions like ITPA were dominated by those of us who are working in the government sector, because that was the main employment provider for planners. So probably we were all very engrossed in our own day-to-day kind of planning activities, but with technology improvement and with planning profession getting into private and consultancy kind of sectors, I see a lot of things happening. We have seen in the last 3 days, we had a conference called Women in Design, a very interesting international conference that happened for the second time after 20 years, like Habitat conferences. It actually, we looked at so many people who are architects, writers, activists, artists, graphic designers, animators, and filmmakers. I mean, these are all roles being played by the architects and planners today. So probably what we are anticipating is happening on its own. I think there's a lot more freedom in the world today for them to pursue and indulge in any of these things, and we should let it happen the way I think it's happening. Then standards and DCRs for many cities in Maharashtra, the unified regulation that is happening, that's coming forward very soon, is going to be unified regulation book for all the development plans and regional plans. It's not by institution. So all the municipalities and special planning authorities in Maharashtra prepare development plans under the Act. They have to prepare development plans. So all the development plans are going to be covered under the new DC regulations. So all SPS will also be covered under it. But the rule book made, the proposal made certain exemptions. BMC, Mumbai Municipal Corporation, is exempted from it. Naina is exempted from it. Navi Mumbai is exempted from it. I think some of the issues were temporary. For example, Navi Mumbai has government land ownership, so the government wanted to make special provisions probably for it, and they will sooner or later make those provisions and include it in the fold of the common DCRs. Naina is experimenting with implementation of town planning schemes. It's midway. Probably it would have become harsh on imposing these standardized rules on them. I think over a period of time, once it approves all its town planning schemes, probably it will be brought in for further developments. So there will be one common standard rule book. Sir, you mentioned a lot of issues related to the exclusions and inclusions and the hardship that has been experienced with regional plan in respect of Pune. There are a lot of hardships in Mumbai as well with regional plan. The timing of it is, and whether there can be faster solutions and quicker approvals for it. Probably the government will, even in case of Mumbai, we are expecting the government may approve most of it, the important features of it, so that the important features of it can be picked up by the government, some aspects, as well as certain projects which are mentioned in the regional plan may be approved, because the regional plan at the end of the story in the book suggested and prioritized all the infrastructure projects which will help realize very important other projects other than infrastructure projects. So therefore, if growth center is a very important element in the regional plan or development of a port, something is important, then all the networks that will help realize that project will be under priority, the transportation networks. So probably that kind of approvals will also happen when a plan is made. It can be sequentially also approved. Then whether MRTP has provisions for regional plan, that's the last question I saw. Yes, the Maharashtra Regional and Town Planning has specific provisions and made necessities for preparation of development plans for all cities, all special planning authority areas which are urbanizing areas, and regional plans for the declared regions. So the government can anytime declare any region and modify it, whatever. Regional plan has to be made. For Mumbai metropolitan region, there have been 3 regional plans so far. The third one being just published a few years ago, and which is awaiting government sanction.
Thank you. Now the session is ending, so I like to share one thing that in Maharashtra we have completed all the regional plans. Inch and inch of Maharashtra has been covered by the regional plan, and we have done, the department has done the very good work. For that we received the felicitation from the Chief Minister of Maharashtra in the same hall. Our various officers, various ranks officers are felicitated by the Honorable Chief Minister for that. That is the great achievement. And now the stage has covered. We have all regional, all district, all regional plans. Now the matter of implementation. We learn from experience, and we that unified DCR is our learning experience, and we amended various development control rules. With this concluding remarks, I conclude this section. Thank you very much.
It was a very thought-provoking session. We touched upon a lot of important aspects, from how we are aspiring to attain the SDGs through various missions, reviewing from how it is necessary to review the current planning practices, and how it is necessary to try to resolve conflict between government policies, planning, and again trying to make our cities more livable, and through various means like applying the Maslow's hierarchy of needs to projects. We are very thankful to the speakers for this interesting discussion. I now request Shri Sanket Mane, Deputy Planner MMRDA, to present the memento to Shri K.S. Akode. I request Srimati Neha Kovekar, Deputy Planner MMRDA, to present the token of appreciation to Shri Chetan Vaidya. I now request Srimati Dipti Naik Nimbalkar, Deputy Planner SIDCO, to present the token of appreciation to Srimati Umadu Sumili. I request Srimati Sarika Bodhankar, Associate Planner MSRDC, to present the token of appreciation to Shri Mayank Mathur. I request Srimati Rashmi Vanzare, Deputy Planner SIDCO, to present the token of appreciation to Srimati Sarika Bahadure. Srimati Rashmi Vanzare again, to present the token of appreciation to Professor Joy Singh. Rashmi has been his student, Professor Joy's student. So a proud moment now. May I now request the speakers and the rapporteurs to please pose for a group picture. A general meeting after this panel discussion, and the members will need to stay back for the meeting. The others can have tea in the foyer. The members can get tea after the extraordinary general meeting. Thank you.